Charlie Munger kept a pile on his desk labeled "Too Hard." His strategy at Berkshire Hathaway was deciding what not to do, and it produced decades of returns that active fund managers couldn't match. There's a name for this approach, and it's 2,500 years old. Wu-Wei, the Taoist principle of non-forcing. This isn't laziness, and it isn't quitting. It's a different way of thinking about effort, and it might be the strategy you've been missing. You know the feeling. You're working harder than you did a year ago, but the returns feel thinner. More hours, more meetings, more tasks stacked on your plate, and somewhere underneath it all, a quiet question you don't have time to sit with. Is this actually working? The modern script says effort equals success, and more effort equals more success. A clean equation that sounds right until you live inside it long enough to notice the gap between what you put in and what you get back. Your bank account hasn't moved. Your sleep has gotten worse. Your relationships have become another item on the to-do list. That gap isn't a character flaw. It's a signal. The burnout research is consistent on this. Grinding harder doesn't produce better outcomes past a certain point. It produces rigidity, tunnel vision, and decisions made from exhaustion rather than judgment. And what if the opposite of constant striving isn't laziness, but something sharper? About 2,500 years ago, a concept emerged called Wu-Wei, non-forcing or effortless action, that reframes the whole problem not as a spiritual comfort for people who've given up, but as a strategic approach for people who are tired of pushing a door that was meant to be pulled. Wu-Wei translates literally as non-doing or non-action, and that translation has confused people for centuries, because it sounds like the advice is to sit still and wait for things to fall into your lap. Edward Slingerland, a scholar who studied this concept at Oxford for years, says the better rendering is effortless action, doing without forcing, moving without grasping. His book on the subject won the American Academy of Religion's Best First Book Award, which tells you this isn't fringe philosophy. It's rigorous scholarship on an idea that shaped Chinese civilization for millennia. Back in the 4th and 3rd centuries BCE, during a time of constant war and social chaos, the idea that forcing things might be part of the problem was radical. The insight at its core is counterintuitive. The more you force, the more resistance you create. The Tao does nothing, but nothing is left undone. Now that sounds like a riddle? In a way it is. Consider water. It doesn't fight the rock in its path. It flows around it, finds the gap, keeps moving downhill, and still reaches the ocean. Water doesn't stop moving. It just doesn't waste energy fighting what it can flow around. That's not weakness. That's a completely different kind of intelligence, and it's the one that Wu-Wei points toward. Wu-Wei is not laziness, not quitting, not sitting still and hoping things work out. It's acting from alignment instead of anxiety. And the part that makes it a paradox, you can't force yourself into Wu-Wei. Trying not to try is still trying. What you can do is create the conditions for it, and that starts with recognizing when you're forcing. Some of the most successful people in modern finance practice this exact principle without ever using the word. Charlie Munger had 3 boxes on his desk: in, out, and too hard. Most investment ideas went straight into the too hard pile, and that wasn't indecision. That was discipline. He and Warren Buffett built Berkshire Hathaway's extraordinary returns, partly by saying no to almost everything, waiting for the opportunities that were obvious and fit, the ones that didn't require forcing or hoping or talking yourself into at 2 a.m. Think about what that means in practice. While other fund managers were reading every earnings report, reacting to every quarterly surprise, rotating through positions every few weeks, Buffett and Munger were mostly sitting still, reading, thinking, waiting. Their returns over decades crushed the people who were working 10 times harder. And the harder-working fund managers weren't incompetent. They were doing exactly what the industry taught them to do. The real issue was applying effort to situations that didn't call for it. Not every opportunity is yours, and not every moment requires your action. The skill isn't doing more. It's recognizing which moves are actually yours to make and having the discipline to let the rest go by. This is Wu-Wei in a business context. Not chasing, not grasping, not reacting from urgency, but holding out for the thing that's clearly right for you and then acting with full commitment when it arrives. Research on management decisions shows the same pattern in a different domain. A striking number of workplace problems resolve themselves when you don't intervene because your intervention is often the thing making the situation worse. The anxious manager who sends 3 follow-up emails to move things along creates more confusion than the problem they were trying to solve. So what's going on inside you when you stop forcing? Back in 2022, Psychology Today published a piece on what they called the Wu-Wei paradox. Cultivating a non-striving mindset facilitates effortless action and, paradoxically, increases your odds of winning. That sounds backwards until you look at how flow states work. Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, the researcher who coined the term flow, found that peak performance across sports, music, and business happens when people stop trying to force the outcome and instead enter a state of absorption in the activity itself. The mechanism is real and it's physical. When you force, you tighten. Your muscles constrict. Your focus narrows. Your creativity drops. You stop noticing what's actually happening around you because you're locked on what you want to happen. You lose the ability to adjust, to pivot, to see the option that's sitting right next to the one you're gripping. The corporate version of this is familiar. The person who responds to every email within 30 seconds, says yes to every meeting, chases every lead, and looks incredibly busy while making decisions from panic instead of clarity. They're not strategic. They're reacting. And the cruel irony is that forcing creates exactly what you're trying to avoid: stiffness, narrow thinking, and eventually burnout that looks identical to laziness from the outside but is actually the body and mind shutting down from overuse. A 2021 meta-analysis of flow states in sport confirmed the pattern. Athletes in flow consistently outperform athletes who are consciously trying to control their performance. The harder they grip, the worse they play. The same principle applies to every choice you face about money, career, and where you spend your time. You already know this from experience, even if you've never named it. The best decision you made last year probably didn't come from grinding. It came from a moment of clarity. But there's an objection coming, and it's fair. Here's the pushback. If you're telling someone working 2 jobs to do nothing, that's not advice. That's privilege talking. Poor people can't afford patience. And this whole concept sounds like it was designed for people who already have enough safety to sit back and wait. That's a fair point, and it would be a devastating critique if Wu-Wei meant do nothing. But it doesn't. And the distinction is the whole point. Laziness avoids effort entirely. Wu-Wei chooses the right effort and releases the rest.